Commander Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the star charts with satisfaction. 47 worlds had fallen to the Caltharian Empire. 47 different species had surrendered when they saw the power of his fleets. Some had fought back for a few days. Others had given up immediately when the Caltharian ships appeared in their skies. None had lasted more than a week. The blue planet called Earth would be number 48. Zektar's scouts had done their job well. They had watched this world for months without being detected. The reports were clear and simple. The humans were primitive. They still used chemical rockets to reach space. Their weapons shot metal bullets instead of energy beams. They had no shields to protect their cities. They were split into hundreds of small nations that fought each other constantly. It would be easy. The commander walked to the tactical display where his officers were planning the attack. The hologram showed Earth floating in space with red markers indicating major population centers. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing. Take these cities and the humans would surrender just like all the others. "How many ships do we need?" asked Sub-Commander Velkan. Zektar barely looked at the data. "The full 47th Conquest Fleet, 10,000 warriors, 50 battle cruisers, 200 support vessels. We'll make this quick and clean." "Sir, the scouts report that Earth's gravity is 1.3 times standard. The atmosphere has high oxygen content. The temperature varies wildly across the planet. Perhaps we should send a smaller force first to test their defenses." Zektar turned to face his subordinate. Velkan was young and had only participated in 3 conquests. He didn't understand how these operations worked. "Sub-Commander, we don't test defenses, we eliminate them. Overwhelming force prevents long wars. Long wars cost resources and lives. Quick victories build the empire. The Mai." Younger officer nodded but looked uncomfortable. "Yes, sir. It's just that this world seems different from the others. The environmental readings suggest it might be classified as a death world. The species that evolved here might be more dangerous than our estimates suggest." "More dangerous?" Zektar laughed. "They fight with primitive projectile weapons. Their fastest aircraft can barely break the sound barrier. They have never fought an enemy with energy shields or plasma weapons. What could possibly make them dangerous?" The bridge fell silent. Zektar's officers had learned not to question his methods. The commander had never lost a conquest. His tactics were proven. His soldiers were the best in the empire. His ships could destroy entire cities from space if necessary. The fleet had been preparing for 3 months. 10,000 Caltharian soldiers trained daily in their powered armor. Each suit could stop bullets, deflect explosions, and boost the wearer's strength to superhuman levels. Their plasma rifles could cut through steel. Their energy shields could absorb tremendous amounts of damage before failing. General Kolrath commanded the ground forces. He had conquered 12 worlds personally and had never retreated from a battlefield. His soldiers called him the Iron Fist of the Empire. He stood 7 feet tall in his armor and carried weapons that could level buildings. "The humans will break quickly," Kolrath told his officers during the final briefing. "They have no experience fighting a unified enemy. Their military forces are scattered across hundreds of different nations. They won't be able to coordinate a proper defense. We'll capture their leaders and force a surrender within 72 hours. Captain Mordek nodded in agreement. He commanded the fleet's assault ships and had seen this pattern dozens of times. Their space defenses are laughable. A few orbital stations and some patrol craft that look like they're held together with metal bands. We'll sweep them aside in the first hour." The Caltharian warriors were eager for battle. They had trained for months and were ready to add another victory to the Empire's long list of conquests. They studied the tactical data and learned about human weapons and armor, chemical projectiles that moved slowly compared to energy weapons, vehicles that ran on fossil fuels, aircraft made of metal instead of energy-resistant alloys. None of it seemed dangerous to soldiers who had conquered civilizations across the galaxy. The ships were loaded with everything needed for a full occupation. Administrative officers to set up the new government, engineers to adapt human infrastructure to Caltharian needs, scientists to study human biology and culture. Zektar planned to have the planet fully integrated into the Empire within 6 months. The BIT Only question was whether to preserve the major human cities or rebuild them from scratch. Zektar preferred to keep existing infrastructure when possible. It saved time and resources. But if the humans proved troublesome, he wouldn't hesitate to level their population centers and start over. 3 days before the invasion, the scouts sent their final report. Human military forces were conducting routine training exercises. There were no signs that they had detected the Caltharian fleet. Their space-based sensors were too primitive to spot ships using proper stealth technology. The humans had no idea what was coming. Zektar gave the order to begin the final approach to Earth. 50 massive ships moved through space toward the blue planet. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a moon. Together, they represented the military might of an empire that spanned hundreds of star systems. The commander looked at Earth growing larger on his screens and felt the familiar satisfaction of another conquest beginning. The humans would learn what happened to species that occupied worlds the empire wanted. They would surrender quickly or be destroyed completely. Either way, Earth would belong to the Caltharians before the week was over. He had no way of knowing that he was leading his entire fleet toward the most dangerous planet in the known galaxy, a world where everything evolved to kill everything else. A world where the dominant species had learned to survive by becoming the most dangerous predators in their planet's long and violent history. The Caltharians were about to discover why the humans called their world home and why no species that tried to take it from them had ever succeeded. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming throughout the Earth Defense Station. He dropped his cup and ran to the command center where dozens of officers were staring at their screens in shock. "What do we have?" Morrison asked as he slid into his command chair. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez looked up from her sensor station with wide eyes. "Sir, we have 50 unknown vessels approaching from the outer system. They're big, really big. The largest ones are 3 times the size of our heavy cruisers." Morrison felt his stomach drop. Earth had been preparing for this day for decades, but no one had expected it to come so soon. The politicians had argued that first contact would be peaceful. The military had prepared for the worst. "Are they responding to our communications?" "Negative, sir. We've tried every frequency and protocol. They're not answering." Morrison activated the fleet-wide communication system. "This is Captain Morrison to all Earth defense vessels. We have unknown ships approaching Earth. All units move to battle stations. This is not a drill." Across the solar system, human ships began moving into defensive positions. The Earth Defense Force had been built around a simple idea. If hostile aliens ever came to Earth, humanity would make them pay for every mile of space they took. The human ships were smaller than the alien vessels, but they were fast and well-armed. More importantly, they were crewed by people who had spent their lives training for 3-dimensional combat in the asteroid belt and around the gas giants. Morrison's ship, the Titan's Dawn, was a heavy cruiser built for long-range patrol duty. It carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon and enough armor to survive a nuclear blast. But looking at the alien fleet on his screens, Morrison knew he was outgunned. "Sir, the alien ships are launching smaller craft. Hundreds of them. They appear to be fighters or assault ships." Morrison nodded grimly. "Launch all fighters. Signal the orbital platforms to prepare for assault. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the invasion has begun." The first space battle in human history began when Ensign Pete Collins, flying a single-seat fighter, opened fire on an alien scout ship that had moved too close to the Mars Defense Station. His missiles struck the alien vessel's shields and exploded harmlessly, but the attack sent a clear message to both sides. The aliens responded with overwhelming force. Energy beams lanced out from their larger ships, destroying 2 human fighters instantly. But the humans had advantages the aliens didn't expect. Lieutenant Rodriguez had been studying the alien sensor readings since they appeared. She was a computer specialist who had spent years analyzing theoretical alien technology. In the first 10 minutes of combat, she noticed something important. "Captain, their shields pulse in a regular pattern. Every 37 seconds, there's a 2-second gap where the energy field drops to 60% strength." Morrison understood immediately. "Signal all ships. Concentrate fire during the shield gaps. Time your attacks for maximum impact." "Lilai." Human ships began coordinating their attacks with precision timing. When the alien shields weakened, every human weapon in range fired at once. The concentrated firepower began to damage alien ships that had seemed invulnerable moments before. But the aliens learned fast too. Within an hour, they had adjusted their shield frequencies to eliminate the weakness. The battle became a grinding fight of attrition that the humans couldn't win. Commander Zektar watched the battle from his flagship and felt confused. These humans were fighting much better than expected. Their ships were primitively armed, but expertly handled. Their tactics were more sophisticated than anything in the Caltharian database. "Sir, we've lost 6 cruisers and 23 fighters," reported his tactical officer. Zektar stared at the display in disbelief. 6 cruisers lost to primitive humans with chemical rockets and metal projectiles. It was impossible, but it was happening. "How are they doing this?" "They appear to be using their ships as weapons, sir. When their guns fail, they ram our vessels. 3 of our cruisers were destroyed by collision attacks." The commander had never seen anything like it. Civilized species surrendered when their weapons failed. They didn't turn their ships into guided missiles. They didn't sacrifice themselves to damage the enemy. But these humans seemed to consider ramming attacks a normal part of space combat. Captain Morrison was preparing for his own ramming attack when the alien fleet suddenly pulled back. His ship was badly damaged, and half his crew was dead or wounded, but they had bloodied the alien nose. "Sir, the aliens are withdrawing to the outer system," reported Rodriguez. Morrison nodded. "They're regrouping. This was just their scouting attack. The real invasion comes next." He was right. Commander Zektar had pulled his fleet back to analyze what had gone wrong. The humans had fought like nothing in the Caltharian military database. They had used tactics that seemed insane but had proven devastatingly effective. General Colrath joined the commander on the bridge. "The humans are more dangerous than expected, but their space forces are small. We've crippled their defensive fleet. The ground invasion can proceed as planned." Zektar looked at the tactical display showing Earth surrounded by the wreckage of human and alien ships. The planet looked defenseless now, with most of its space-based weapons destroyed or damaged. "Very well, begin the ground assault, but General, don't underestimate these humans again. They've already proven they don't fight like any species we've encountered." The alien landing ships began their descent toward Earth's major cities. Millions of humans looked up at the sky and saw their worst nightmares becoming reality. But they were not helpless. They were angry. Jake Morrison watched the alien ships entering Earth's atmosphere and activated the planetary defense network. "All ground forces, this is Morrison. The aliens are coming down. Make them regret it." Sergeant Bill Thompson was eating breakfast in his apartment when the ground shook and the windows exploded. He rolled off his chair and crawled to the window to see alien ships landing in Central Park. Each ship was the size of a city block, and they were dropping armored soldiers onto the grass. Thompson grabbed his rifle and his gear bag. He had been a Marine for 12 years and had fought in 3 wars, but he had never faced aliens before. He ran down the stairs of his building and into the street where chaos was everywhere. People were screaming and running in all directions. Cars were crashing into each other as drivers tried to escape. But Thompson also saw something else. Other soldiers and police officers were moving toward the park instead of away from it. New York was under attack, but New Yorkers were going to fight back. Thompson's radio crackled to life. "All military personnel report to rally points. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." He joined a group of 20 soldiers gathering at the intersection of 5th Avenue and 59th Street. A lieutenant named Carol Davis was organizing the defense. She looked scared but determined. "Okay, people, here's what we know. Aliens have landed in the park and they're moving out into the city. Intelligence says they have energy weapons and powered armor. We have bullets and body armor. Questions?" Nobody asked any questions. They all knew the odds. Thompson and his squad moved through, the streets using every piece of cover they could find. The aliens were advancing in formation down the main roads like they were on parade. Their armor was shiny, and their weapons hummed with energy. They looked unstoppable. The first contact happened when Private Danny Lopez took a shot at an alien from a 3rd-floor window. His bullet hit the alien's energy shield and bounced off harmlessly. The alien turned and fired back with a beam of red light that cut through the brick wall like it was paper. But Lopez had already moved to another window. He fired again, and again the bullet bounced off. Then something unexpected happened. The alien's shield flickered and went dark for a few seconds before reactivating. "Their shields overheat," Lopez shouted into his radio. "Keep shooting at the same target." Thompson understood immediately. He signaled his squad and they all focused their fire on one alien soldier. 20 rifles firing at once overwhelmed the shield system. The alien went down. The other aliens responded by firing at every building where they had seen muzzle flashes. Their energy weapons cut through concrete and steel easily, but the humans had already moved to new positions. Lieutenant Davis coordinated the defense from a subway station that had been converted into a command post. She watched on security cameras as her soldiers fought a running battle through the streets of Manhattan. "They're learning," she told Thompson over the radio. "The aliens are adapting to our tactics faster than expected, but they're making mistakes, too. They don't understand urban warfare." The aliens had been trained to fight on open battlefields where their superior weapons and armor gave them every advantage. But the streets of New York were different. Every building could hide snipers. Every intersection could become a kill zone. Every subway tunnel could be used to move troops without being seen. Major Frank Wilson commanded the 1st Infantry Regiment and had turned the Upper East Side into a fortress. His soldiers had blocked streets with overturned cars and buses. They had placed explosive charges in buildings and tunnels. They had stockpiled ammunition in dozens of hidden locations. The aliens walked into Wilson's trap when they tried to advance toward the United Nations building. Hidden soldiers opened fire from windows, rooftops, and basement entrances. The crossfire was devastating, but the alien armor protected them from most of the damage. Then Wilson triggered the charges he had placed in the buildings on both sides of the street. Tons of concrete and steel crashed down on the alien formation. Their energy shields couldn't stop falling buildings. But the aliens learned from that attack too. They stopped advancing in formation and began moving in small groups. They used their energy weapons to blast holes in buildings instead of walking through doors. They started flying instead of walking when possible. The battle became a deadly game of adaptation. Every time the humans found a weakness, the aliens adjusted their tactics. Every time the aliens tried a new approach, the humans found a way to counter it. Thompson's squad had been fighting for 6 hours when they encountered their first alien patrol in close combat. 3 alien soldiers cornered them in an office building lobby. The aliens were 7 feet tall in their armor and carried weapons that could cut a man in half. Thompson threw a grenade and dove behind a concrete pillar. The explosion knocked down one alien but barely scratched the other 2. They advanced with their weapons charging for another shot. That's when Corporal Maria Santos dropped from the ceiling where she had been hiding in the ventilation system. She landed on the first alien's back and jammed her combat knife into the gap between his helmet and armor. The alien dropped instantly. The second alien spun around to face Santos, but Thompson was already moving. He tackled the alien from behind, and both of them crashed through a glass door into the next room. They wrestled for control of the alien's weapon while Santos provided cover fire. Thompson managed to turn the alien's own weapon against him. The energy beam cut through the alien armor like it was made of paper. The alien dropped dead. Santos helped Thompson to his feet. Both of them were bleeding and exhausted, but they were alive. Around them, the battle for New York continued to rage. Lieutenant Davis received reports from across the city. The aliens had superior technology, but they were struggling against an enemy that refused to fight fair. Humans were using tactics that no civilized species would consider. Suicide attacks, booby traps, civilians joining the fight with hunting rifles and homemade explosives. The aliens had expected to conquer Earth in 72 hours. After the first day, they controlled less than 10% of Manhattan, and their casualties were mounting rapidly. Private First Class Tony Martinez had been separated from his unit for 8 days. The fighting in Los Angeles had scattered his platoon when alien forces bombed their position near downtown. Martinez found himself alone in a city that had become a war zone. He had learned to survive by staying hidden during the day and moving at night. The aliens had night vision technology, But Martinez knew the city better than they did. He had grown up in these streets and knew every alley, every rooftop, every abandoned building. Martinez carried only a hunting rifle, 50 rounds of ammunition, and a backpack full of supplies he had scavenged from destroyed stores. It wasn't much, but it was enough. He had already killed 11 alien soldiers using hit-and-run tactics. His method was simple. Find a good hiding spot with multiple escape routes. Wait for an alien patrol to pass by. Take one shot at the alien in the back of the group. Run before the others could react. The aliens would search for him, but Martinez would already be 3 blocks away. The aliens were getting frustrated. They had expected to control Los Angeles within days, but human resistance was stronger than predicted. Small groups of soldiers and civilians were fighting from every neighborhood. The aliens controlled the main roads, but humans owned the side streets. Colonel Rick Hayes commanded what was left of the 3rd Armored Division in Chicago. His tanks had been destroyed in the first week of fighting, but his soldiers were still active. They had learned to fight without heavy weapons by using the city itself as a weapon. Hayes had turned the Chicago River into a death trap. When alien forces tried to cross the bridges, his men would detonate explosives that dropped the bridges into the water. The aliens would have to swim across in their heavy armor, making them easy targets for snipers hidden in the riverside buildings. The aliens adapted by flying across the river instead of walking. So Hayes moved his men into the tall buildings downtown and turned them into vertical battlefields. The aliens would enter a skyscraper at ground level and fight their way up floor by floor, only to discover that the humans had already moved to another building. Dr. Helen Brooks worked in a secret laboratory beneath the ruins of MIT. She had been studying captured alien technology for 3 weeks, trying to understand how their weapons and armor worked. Her team had made several important discoveries. The alien energy weapons were powered by small fusion reactors that could be overloaded if hit with the right kind of electromagnetic pulse. The alien armor was nearly invulnerable to bullets, but it had weak points at the joints where different pieces connected. Brooks had shared her findings with every human military unit still fighting. Within days, human soldiers were carrying homemade EMP devices that could disable alien weapons. They were using armor-piercing rounds aimed specifically at the weak points in alien suits. The tide of the war was beginning to turn, but the aliens still had advantages. They controlled most of the major cities and had orbital support from their ships in space. They could call down energy strikes from orbit to destroy any human position that became too threatening. Captain Steve Johnson led a unit of Navy SEALs operating behind alien lines in Washington, D.C. His mission was to capture alien technology and prisoners for study. It was dangerous work that required getting close to the enemy without being detected. Johnson's team had been tracking an alien commander for 2 days. The alien was coordinating attacks from a mobile command post that moved through the city. If Johnson could capture the alien and his equipment, human forces might learn important information about alien tactics and technology. The opportunity came when the alien command post stopped in a parking garage near the Capitol building. Johnson and his men surrounded the building and waited for the right moment to attack. The assault lasted less than 5 minutes. Johnson's team used flashbang grenades to confuse the aliens, then attacked with close-range weapons aimed at the weak points in their armor. 3 aliens were killed, but the commander was captured alive along with his communications equipment. The captured alien was Sub-Commander Velkan, second in command of the entire invasion force. During his interrogation, he revealed information that shocked the human intelligence officers. The Caltharian Empire had conquered 47 worlds, using the same tactics they had tried on Earth. Every other species had surrendered within days of the invasion beginning. The Caltharians had never faced an enemy that fought back as hard as the humans were fighting. Velkan told his interrogators that the alien forces were demoralized and confused. They had been trained to fight conventional military forces, not an entire population that seemed determined to resist. Every human civilian was a potential enemy. Every building was a potential fortress. Every street was a potential battlefield. The alien command structure was breaking down. Unit commanders were making decisions without orders from above because communications were being jammed or intercepted. Soldiers were refusing to enter certain areas of cities because the casualty rates were too high. Meanwhile, human forces were getting stronger. New weapons based on captured alien technology were being distributed to resistance groups around the world. Military units that had been scattered were regrouping and launching coordinated attacks. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez had survived the space battle and made it to Earth's surface. She was now working with a team of engineers to build human versions of alien energy weapons. The first prototypes were crude and unreliable, but they worked. Rodriguez's team had also figured out how to jam alien communications by broadcasting random signals on the frequencies the aliens used. This made it harder for alien units to coordinate their attacks and call for support. The war was entering a new phase. The aliens still had superior technology and numbers, but they were fighting on a world that seemed designed to kill them. The gravity was too strong, the atmosphere was too dense, and the local population was too aggressive. More importantly, the humans were learning and adapting faster than the aliens had expected. Every day brought new tactics, new weapons, and new ways to turn alien advantages into weaknesses. Commander Zektar received reports from his ground commanders that painted a grim picture. The invasion was stalled. His forces controlled less territory than they had a week ago. Casualties were mounting daily, and morale was collapsing. For the first time in his career, Zektar was considering the possibility that the Caltharian Empire might lose a war. Sub-Commander Velkan crouched in the ruins of what had once been a shopping mall in Detroit. His armor was damaged and his weapon was almost out of power. He was the last Caltharian alive on Earth, and he knew it. 3 months had passed since the final Caltharian ship had been destroyed in orbit. Velkan had watched from the ground as human fighters swarmed his people's vessels like angry insects. The humans had reverse-engineered captured alien technology and built weapons that could punch through Caltharian shields. The invasion had lasted 6 months. It should have taken 3 days. Velkan's survival suit recorded everything he saw and heard. It was military protocol to document battles for future analysis. But there would be no future Caltharian military to analyze this disaster. The 47th Conquest Fleet was gone. 10,000 elite warriors were dead. 50 warships were floating debris, all because they had underestimated a species that lived on a Deathworld. Velkan had been hiding in the ruins for weeks, trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. He had studied the humans during his captivity and learned things that terrified him more than any weapon. The humans didn't fight wars the way civilized species did. They didn't have rules about targeting civilians or preserving infrastructure. They didn't surrender when their military forces were defeated. Instead, every human became a soldier when their world was threatened. Children as young as 10 had carried messages between resistance groups. Old people had made explosives in their basements. Factory workers had sabotaged alien equipment during the occupation. Scientists had reverse-engineered alien technology in hidden laboratories. The humans had turned their entire planet into a weapon aimed at the invaders. Velkan remembered the conversation he had overheard between 2 human soldiers during his captivity. They had been discussing the war like it was a problem to be solved rather than a glorious battle to be won. The aliens made 3 big mistakes, one soldier had said. First, they thought we would fight like other species they had conquered. Second, they didn't understand that Earth makes everything tougher. Third, they gave us time to study their technology. The other soldier had nodded. Plus, they landed in our cities instead of trying to destroy them from space. Once they came, down here they had to fight on our terms. Velkan understood now. The Caltharians had won their previous conquests by using overwhelming force against species that weren't prepared for war. But humans had been preparing for war their entire existence. They had been fighting each other for thousands of years and had learned every possible way to kill efficiently. When the aliens arrived, humans had simply applied those lessons to fighting a new enemy. The sound of footsteps in the rubble made Velkan freeze. Human search teams had been looking for him for weeks. His suit's camouflage system was failing, and he knew it was only a matter of time before they found him. Captain Steve Johnson appeared around a pile of broken concrete with his weapon raised. Behind him were 3 other soldiers, all carrying rifles based on modified Caltharian technology. "Don't move," Johnson said in accented Caltharian. The humans had learned to speak several alien languages during the war. Velkan slowly raised his hands. He was tired of running and tired of hiding. Part of him was relieved that it was finally over. I surrender, he said in English. He had learned the human language during his previous captivity. Johnson kept his weapon aimed at Velkan but didn't shoot. Are you injured? The question surprised Velkan. Enemy soldiers were supposed to be killed or captured, not given medical treatment. But these humans seemed to follow different rules. My armor's life support is failing, Velkan admitted. I have maybe 6 hours of air left, Johnson signaled to one of his men, who produced a human-made breathing mask. This should help until we get you to a medical facility. Velkan stared at the mask. Why are you helping me? I'm your enemy. The war is over, Johnson said simply. You're the last one left. No point in letting you die from equipment failure. They took Velkan to a human military base that had been built in the ruins of an alien landing site. The base was a mixture of human and alien technology, with captured alien equipment being studied and modified by human engineers. Dr. Helen Brooks interviewed Velkan for hours, asking detailed questions about Caltharian military doctrine, technology, and society. She wasn't interrogating him for military secrets. The war was over and the humans had won. She was trying to understand how to prevent future conflicts. Your empire has conquered 47 worlds, Brooks said during one session. What will happen when they learn what happened here? Velkan considered the question carefully. They will be afraid. The Caltharian Empire has never lost an entire conquest fleet. They will think Earth is protected by some unknown superweapon. Will they try to attack again? No, Velkan said with certainty. They will classify Earth as too dangerous to approach. Your world will be marked as a forbidden zone. Brooks nodded. Good. We don't want to fight another war, but we will if we have to. Velkan spent 6 months in human custody. During that time, he observed how the humans were rebuilding their world. They were using alien technology to repair the damage caused by the war, but they were also preparing for the possibility of future attacks. Human engineers were building new weapons based on captured alien designs. Human scientists were developing better armor and shields. Human military leaders were planning defensive strategies based on what they had learned from fighting the Caltharians. The humans weren't celebrating their victory. They were treating it as a learning experience. When the human government finally decided to release Velkan, they gave him a ship built from hybrid human-alien technology. It was faster and more advanced than anything the Caltharian Empire had ever built. Take this message to your leaders, President Sarah Williams told him during their final meeting. Earth is willing to establish peaceful relations with the Caltharian Empire. We don't want to be enemies, but if you attack us again, the response will be much worse than what happened to your invasion fleet. Velkan understood the message. The humans had held back during the war. They could have been much more brutal if they had chosen to be. The journey back to Caltharian space took 2 months. When Velkan finally arrived, he was debriefed by the Empire's highest military commanders. His report was classified at the E, highest level, and shared only with the Emperor himself. The official record stated that the 47th Conquest Fleet had been destroyed by an unknown superweapon. The truth about human capabilities was deemed too dangerous to share widely. Velkan spent the rest of his life as a military advisor, teaching Caltharian forces about the species that had defeated them. He always ended his lectures with the same warning: never underestimate a species that evolved on a Deathworld, and never, ever try to conquer the humans. They call their planet Earth, but we learn to call it Hell. The difference is that they were born there, and we were just visiting.